people think creativity is ideas. It's not. Ideas is part of creativity, but really, if you're going to actually be creative, you have to execute too.
Hello and welcome once again to this edition of Behind the Screens with our ScreenCloud mugs for those of you watching on the video.
Well, the ScreenCloud mugs that basically the ones that didn't work, clearly, because if you look at the YouTube video, there's like zero bleed on it. So you have to experiment with mug printing by printing mugs. And
the good thing is that we gave that to someone to do. We said, look, take some initiative and go and create some some mugs.
Shoehorning that in.
So bad.
I wonder what this episode's about.
So we're going to do something around employees taking initiative as founders. Why is that a good thing? How do you manage that kind of thing? So when you start a business, obviously, to start with, you're doing everything literally. If it's just the founders, you're sweeping the floor. If you've got your own office, calling the plumber, and then probably half an hour later pitching to VCs. So you're doing absolutely everything, and it's in some ways that's quite comforting because at least you know everything's getting done. But obviously it's not sustainable, and what you really need to do is, as soon as you can, start hiring people. Firstly, to relieve you of that pressure, but secondly, because they're probably going to be able to do a much better job of it than you can, especially in the sort of specialisms that you're hiring in. And for that to really work, they need to be able to take initiative, and which is a great thing. We as leaders, you want people to take initiative. You want people to just basically say, "Hey, I solved that thing," or "I've done this great initiative, and look what's happened. We've got loads more customers." But obviously, as part of that, there is that kind of balance really. As you want people to take initiative, but you clearly don't want them to go off and do something crazy or something that's going to endanger the company in some ways. And obviously, from an employer's point of view, it's probably even more stressful because they go, it's great that the founders have said, hey, go off and take your own initiative, but what if I do that and then I screw up royally? Are they going to say, well, at least you took initiative, like some sort of benevolent parent, or are they going to be like, well, that was a really dumb thing to do, you should have spoken to me first? And so we just wanted to sort of talk about that and how that works, and our sort of, I guess, our kind of approach to it. And we've got within the company, one of our values is that we trust people, we trust our staff, and we say, look, we hire grown-ups and we trust you to do a good job. And at the same time, it's difficult because sometimes things do go wrong, and sometimes you just think, oh man, why did that happen, or why didn't that happen? You don't want to get into a blame culture. And for me specifically, I like to be kept updated, and I kind of figure if I've said that's cool, or I haven't got any comments, or that sounds like a great idea, then I'm quite happy for people to go off and do things. Obviously, if I have an objection to something and then someone ignores me, then that's going to massively wind me up. But beyond that, I kind of feel like actually, if I've been made aware of something and I've either contributed or not contributed, but I've effectively said that's good, go off and do it, then whatever comes out of that, I think that's if it's good, it's great. But I couldn't really be cross with someone if it's not necessarily worked out perfectly.
Yeah, I think we probably have different. I think we definitely have different approaches to this. So I think going back through my career, I probably was much more worried about things not being done right. When I was a project manager, for example, that was my job for a while. And I remember I was quite on top of my team, too much, definitely too much, I think, back then.
This is in the agency?
In agency days, yeah.
Pre-ScreenCloud.
And I think I was permanently sort of almost expecting people to sort of screw up. And of course, things do happen. So it sort of annoyingly sometimes proves you right, but it's not the right thing to do. I think I kind of tried to, the agency never really did anything amazing. It did okay, but basically that just doesn't scale. It doesn't really work. And so I kind of thought, well, look, the whole point of ScreenCloud is we're trying to grow something kind of sort of bigger than just, hey, these founders can do this thing, right? So either way, that has to change, right? Because it's failed, even if we run a perfectly tight ship. Yeah. It's still failed, because if it doesn't scale to the people, and there's people take on their own initiative and take on ownership. And I think ownership is probably more important than initiative, because if initiative sounds to me like new ideas as such, whereas ownership, I think, is more day to day what you're looking for, with moments of initiative where someone sees something, I think we can improve this by doing X. But I think that's more the exception rather than the rule. Ownership and owning something is much more the kind of attitude you're looking for day to day. And I think that with the team that I've worked closely with, it's all about setting expectations and being consistent, right? So it's about, you can't sort of, give with one hand and take away with the other. What I would generally say, and typically, I was training people up who were still early in their career, right? So they did need to listen. So if you bring someone in who's quite experienced, then it's a different way of dealing with that, right? Realistically, you still need to give some guidance, but not anywhere to the same degree. And I think it was all about just saying, look, to begin with, accept you kind of know nothing, because you don't. Shadow me, like come and work very closely with me, see what happens. And then after we have sort of key things, such as, let's say, come on a call with a potential customer, I'm going to do the demonstration, I'm going to handle the objections, I'm going to basically do the best I can do. Hopefully it'll go well. Not all of them. Actually, I remember it's probably a bit of a tangent, but like it was just annoying that the first demo I did take Sam on, one of the people in the room was an absolute prick and just was like on my case, interrupting me during the demo, constantly like nagging anything that wasn't exactly perfect. And he really was a bit of an arse, and it was very, very difficult because poor old Sam's probably sat there looking at this going, this is a normal day. Like this guy's like started picking you, like you don't even like your name, like he was just a really antagonistic type person.
Like your name. Just great feedback. We'll go back and rebrand.
I'll rename myself. No, me.
You didn't like your name.
I just like, there's so many marks in this industry. It's just something ridiculous. Remember that guy had a go at me for having a laptop?
Yeah,
it's just like, what?
Why have you got a Mac?
Anyway, so there are these kind of people, but nonetheless, it's a bit of a tangent. But so heavy shadowing, and then quite often, I think the really important bit is once they've actually seen it, you then take and carve out the time afterwards to discuss it, and actually, I think to also show some humility and go, I don't think I handled that part very well. I did that demo, and I think overall, I would say, even with the prick, I still think, actually they ended up being I don't think that guy works there anymore because he wasn't the main customer, I'm just going to say. But he did actually end up becoming a customer. And I think that guy in IT has actually, I've never heard of him again. Right. So my actual main customer, who wasn't that guy, was lovely. But he was just one of the people they bring in for the demos. Sometimes like 7 people in the demo.
The bad cop.
He really was a bad cop. I think some people get off on it, I don't know. Anyway, it's strange. So, but then I think afterwards, we went through it, we talked about it, and I said, look, I don't think I handled part of that really well. In fact, I think I kind of could have done that much better. I was rising to it a little. And I think you've got to show that even if you've done it for like a long time, you're still nowhere near perfect. I think that helps take some of the pressure out for people. And then I think you also just need to guide through and go, look, in a demo, there are certain things we're not even going to have a debate about. We must do. We've got to address these things because basically you can't really do this. A client can't do a project unless they have this information. So it's key information. It's just got to happen. You either learn it or you don't. But if you don't learn it, then you fail. But here's where there's tolerance. Here's where there's like, look, you can kind of read the room a bit, And I think what I was basically doing was saying, look, you can have this is where you can be you. This is where you can't be you. We just got to do this stuff like hit security. We've got to hit like different player options. You just got to rattle that stuff out, learn it, give it some oomph, but basically it's bread and butter stuff. And then here's where, you can kind of show and shine yourself. And then, and then here's key things to always bring it back to. Like, you're not on a feature tour, you're selling in solutions. You're selling business benefit, not how to click a button, right? So don't be drawn down that. I'm talking about demos here, but I was mainly training sales team. Anyway, and then I said, right, now, hand that back to you. Take as much time as you need to get anywhere close to where you think you're good enough to do this. Meanwhile, we'll give you other tasks and other things to do. And basically, let's get you up to speed. But the whole ambition here from day one is that you will be doing this yourself imminently. Yeah. And the role will flip from me leading to me just shadowing or just watching a recording of it or something.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you set the expectations that I'm expecting you to take the initiative and ownership of this, but I'm also going to spend a lot of time trying to get you as close to that and prepared for that as possible. And I'm going to give you where I think is your tolerance for, hey, look, you can wing it on this bit, and if it doesn't work out, it's cool, it's fine. I mean, maybe because we work on slightly different things. Obviously, you're working kind of more on kind of like numbers or shareholder certificates. It's like it's a bit more binary with you with what you were previously doing. It's either right or it's wrong to a degree, and that's maybe where your sort of tolerance, you don't have as much tolerance for people to make mistakes. Whereas in a sales demo, it's very rare that you could say something so bad that the whole thing's gone.
Well, obviously, I mean, marketing is something that I'm responsible for, and there's quite a lot of things that you can, and actually it can be quite expensive getting those things wrong.
Right, yeah.
But I think actually what you're saying about ownership is it is ownership rather than initiative, because it's about accountability. And if someone feels accountable to an extent, they're going to do a better job than if they're just waiting to be told.
Do you think accountability has a slightly negative connotation though?
I guess.
I mean, to be accountable basically means, look, you're only ever accountable for something when it goes wrong, right? I mean, you may be accountable for it as in, but ownership feels for me like a positive version of accountability. Accountability is usually like when you're unpicking something that went wrong, who is accountable for it? Like what's the positive version of accountability? Well,
I suppose that you can just apply positive things to someone in an accountable way. Like if someone does, if a campaign's gone really, really well, I know what you mean. Like, but accountability has a negative. But actually, having said that, the fact that it's there and what you don't want is someone to say, "Well, I'm just doing a job and okay, apparently it hasn't gone very well." You want people to kind of go, really. Sort of do well when things go well, you should be able to celebrate that and be able to.
So I suppose what I'm trying to get my brain is, it's more like a sentence. I have been empowered to have ownership of this, and as a result, I feel accountable for it working out. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, so they're not in isolation. It's like because of this positive thing, this empowerment, because I feel I can, because I want to, because the company needs it, because I want to do the best job. Like, this is all positive stuff of why people taking ownership is great. And as a result, because of that, you've assumed that responsibility, you've stepped up, right? Which is fantastic. There is a responsibility with that, which is your accountability. But the accountability, I wouldn't want to lead on accountability, because otherwise that's basically saying, who's got the biggest balls?
But I suppose flip side of that is how do you encourage ownership? And have we been terribly successful at it in all areas of the business? Do you think there are some areas where people feel are more inclined to display ownership and initiative than in others, or is that just inevitable because sales is different to marketing, it's different to engineering, it's different to finance? Or
I don't know. I would say that I don't really know because I haven't, because we don't overlap ourselves hugely. Like, I don't really dive into the teams that you're responsible for and look at those meetings. I'm not in those meetings. I don't know how those discussions are. So I could only go from how I would observe it. I think that we probably haven't done enough of it in engineering, but it's a very different discipline to sales. For me, maybe I was just I was sales, right? It was just me, and I was just support, and it was just it was an overwhelming barrage of just constant communication, and I had to have someone come and help me take ownership of it because it was just overwhelming. So I think I was pretty good at it because I so desperately wanted it, and I think it is something that you know. As you say, things won't all, not every call will go great. Not every response to a customer will be met with as well as it could be. But because there's so many chances almost on a daily basis to rectify it, it just doesn't feel, and obviously I wasn't putting someone who'd never done a demo up for our biggest customer. We were very deliberately picking and choosing the demos that felt right. So we were looking for generally slightly smaller ones, but also ones where we could tell that we could predict just from the persona, because I'd done so many of them. I could be like, oh, that lead, I know exactly how that's going to play out, right? It's a high school district, US. I know what hardware they're going to want. I know pretty much what questions and concerns they're going to have. Could even probably tell you the type of person who's going to be on the call. And I could prep them really, really well. And, usually I was probably about 80% right, just because, pattern recognition. So giving ownership to that wasn't particularly tough, Then, to be honest, it flips rather than from, and this is where I have a slight problem with the accountability word maybe, is that I didn't want them to feel too much pressure. Like, I wanted them to make mistakes. And in fact, actually, that kind of reminds me, we played a game, which was, I said to Sam and then to Ben, I said, look, there's going to be a day where you are going to make a monumentally poor mistake, either bad judgment or your bit of complacency is going to step in and it's going to bite you on the ass, but it's going to happen. It's going to be an awful day. It's going to be a day you're going to have such a sinking feeling in your stomach that you're going to want to either puke or cry or both, or either way, leave the building. And it's going to happen. And I reckon it's going to happen sometime in the next year to 18 months. And when we do that day, we're going to celebrate that day, right? Once we fix the fuck up, right? So we fix the fuck up and then we're going to celebrate it because finally you've ripped the plaster off. And that is going to be the biggest lesson you're going to get that I can't teach you. I can tell you about my bad day, like the one I had in my history, and there's been several, like where I dropped the ball big time, but you need to feel it. So I kind of prepped them saying, it's going to be bad. You're going to think I'm going to fire you. I'm not. We're going to fix it. You're going to mostly fix it. And then we're going to celebrate it and talk about it because it's done. Right. Yeah. And so it was like setting the expectation, like, this must happen.
That's quite good because it's sort of giving permission to fail, isn't
it? Yeah. And I said, look, and ideally we want to like push this back and we don't want it to be too bad. And Sam's one was when we were in Amsterdam, ISE, we were doing a big demo. We were put on the showcase for Intel that night. We were walking to the conference and we would literally have to leave the conference, go straight to the event. And this was our big Intel showcase. First time Intel had given us this kind of elevated status to all of their biggest customers and partners. So it was a big deal. And Sam was on it. He was the one setting up the demo, doing all the stuff for this. And then I just flippantly said that morning as we watched this, and he was clearly nervous about that. I said, look, it's okay. You've prepped it. We've got all the content ready. We've cached it. We're good. We're happy. Don't worry. I know it's a big thing, but it'll be all right. So look, at the end of the day, as long as we've got a screen, everything's fine. And he went, a screen? I went, well, I mean, we didn't get on EasyJet with a massive 42-inch screen, did we now? So obviously Intel will be providing us a screen. I don't know. And then he rang them. They hadn't.
Oh, man.
And we had 5 hours to get a screen. And I was like, mate, like we can almost fake everything else in a demo, but what we can't fake is a screen. I can't draw one on a box and go, it's here.
Imagine there was a screen in this.
And he went very, very pale. And I gave him an hour to go and like work it out. And fair enough, he pulled strings. He basically begged people and it helped. And we managed to find a screen somewhere in Amsterdam and get it done. And it was all right. But he was like,
God, could you be realised then and not 5 minutes before you were...
Well, it was just a flippant remark. Well, yeah. So I think it also the fact that had I not said it, it just wouldn't have come into his... and that's just basically about thoroughness, isn't it? It's about like even taking what seems like an obvious thing, like why would you be doing screen demonstrations without a screen? You got to make sure, is a screen there? Is there power? I mean, like all these basics, But now, like you do any demo now, he's the most thorough man on earth.
Yeah.
Because he had his
moment.
He had his moment, but he was empowered to make that. And when it totally fell down, I didn't panic because I just said, mate, it's all right. You got 5 hours to fix it. Off you go. So there's nothing else is important today. You fix that.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to stress. I'm not going to add. I already know you're a good guy. You're going to be feeling this bad.
Yeah. And when it does happen, it is really, it's great because you kind of feel like things are going right. I mean, the one that I talked about a couple of weeks ago was Tony and Beth and Ben all went out to America to do case studies and film some of our customers out there. And the nice thing about that is that it just happened. There was a very brief conversation about, I think we should definitely do that. And then the next thing I knew, the flights were booked. all of the customers have been spoken to. So what I didn't feel like I was having to sort of go, hey, getting on with that case study thing. Is that case study thing going to happen soon? It was just, no, it's just done. And then as far as the first thing I heard about it was when they were booking their flights, and it's like, this is brilliant. And so it's, I don't know, it's interesting. It's like how, as a leader, you really need to encourage that behavior. And I'm not sure, I think part of the reason that happened is because of the personalities involved. I'm not sure that everybody in the company would necessarily take that kind of initiative, but we need to definitely be able to encourage that.
So with that stuff, so that is a classic example of initiative as a result of empowerment. So you do, as I said, you want these little initiatives, which just sort of things that happen without necessarily you like asking for them or necessarily like, you can certainly support it, but it's not come from you. And I think with that, the key is to slightly pour water on people. Like, people think creativity is ideas. It's not. Ideas is part of creativity, but really, if you're going to actually be creative, you have to execute too. And quite often, I think, it's easy to go into a sort of fun discussion where you just have loads and loads of ideas, but like, who gives a shit? Like, so long as the ideas, like, and also you can't have 20 ideas. Well, you can have 20 ideas, but you've got to execute on some. Yeah. And I think that what it is saying, look, it's all very well having nice chats and, hey, we could do this, we could do that, but someone's got to then pick up that ball and like run with it. And then when they do, then I think our job is to really celebrate them doing that. Because then it sort of shows that this is not just about, we could do this, we could do that. Because, honestly, we could do a lot of things. Yeah. But what are we actually going to do, and what's going to be impactful, or what do we think will be impactful, and what are you going to do about it? Are you going to wait to be told, or are you going to go? And I think it has to be like when someone has an idea that, like, it almost hurts if they couldn't execute it. It should feel like that. It's like, I like that idea so much that I just got to do it, and I just really know this will work, and why don't we just go for it? And then obviously you probably need a few people around you to kind of equally celebrate that idea and kind of go, you know what? I reckon this is a good thing. Let's no time like the present. Let's just go for it. Let's just try. Again, it's about how you respond. Like like the story before was about me not blowing my top when they had their screw up, and this is like the flip side, the more positive version, which is when someone really believes in something, you got to back them. Even if you had doubts, even if you thought, you know what, maybe that's going to cost quite a lot of money, maybe that won't actually really move the needle that much. I actually think you've got to back people, even if you're not convinced it'll always work, because you've got to show the willingness to set people free, because otherwise it's just words.
And also there is also that thing of, so I'm just thinking recently, I'm not going to name names, but we did a quite large RFP. And I suppose because it was such an important RFP, but it would have been quite hard, I think, for you to have gone, you know what, I'm not even going to look at this because I trust everybody involved.
Yeah, well, we'd never done anything of that size. And actually, funny enough, like someone did say to me, like, maybe, I was actually on holiday when it was going in. Yeah. And they said, look, you should let it. I think, if you had another one like that, I wouldn't feel the need to go over it as with a tooth comb at the end, but I held back. I said, I kind of set it up. So I kind of said, look, here's the teams that I want to. Here's the team I want to work on this, and here's the responsibilities that I want each part of that team to have. Like, you own that bit, you own that bit, you own that bit, kind of thing. And I was like, right, go for it. Go off and do your stuff. Like, have a week. Yeah. And then at the end of it, when it all pulls together, I'll do a full review and we'll go. Yeah. I think that was right.
Yeah, because obviously I was here and I was watching it and I was contributing a little bit to it as well. And actually, what I saw was people taking ownership and also a kind of collaborative way of finessing things. So someone was going, someone was taking responsibility for other bits of like, we've said something over here, it's not consistent over here. Yeah. And that was really good to see. So there was, because it would have been very easy for someone to say, okay, I'm just going to look at my bits are these 5 questions. I'm just going to do that. And I'm not even going to bother seeing how that fits in. Does it look right? Is the tone of voice right? Have I said something here that's contradicted someone over there? And the fact that there were a few people there that were doing that and kind of, I guess, making it into more of a kind of a whole type of response, because that's the danger, isn't it? If you kind of outsource or not outsource it, but you go, right, you do that bit, you do that bit, you do that bit, unless someone's going, okay, but we need to sort of think about what this
it needs to
like
have a common
completely.
thread. It needs to flow as a response. I guess apart from that was me, but I think also people did that as well. But actually, that reminded me of something I learned when I was doing the creative director role in the agency, and I was reviewing design. Is when I was younger and more insecure about things like that, and I wasn't really, I didn't really have I had done art to a point, but not graphic design and stuff, so I wasn't really qualified in it. I always felt that when you review things, if you don't change something, you haven't really reviewed it, which is just totally stupid.
Classic client reaction
yeah,
to
exactly.
agency work, isn't it?
And so I'm very conscious when I review things, especially review things where people have genuinely taken ownership and some initiative over, is when I'm about to make a change or a suggestion, is this just opinion or is it wrong? Or is this personal preference or is it wrong? So there might be the way something's expressed. It might be, I wouldn't have expressed it that way. Well, but does my version of expressing that way may make me feel more comfortable because it's like that lands more naturally with me. But actually, is it just there's two ways of saying the same thing, which English is a pretty versatile language. You can say the same thing 50 different ways. Or is what they're actually saying wrong? Because if it's actually wrong, it needs to be changed. It needs to be edited. Otherwise, we're And so I was very conscious to like limit as much like personal preference, because it's just disheartening. And just only look for the stuff where I'm like, actually, either this could be much stronger if we mentioned X. So, for example, we were talking about like how do we delight our customers, and there was quite a lot of sort of non-tangible proof of that. But I went, well, actually, we do also have two statistics, which is our customer satisfaction rating, which is really high, and our NPS score. Now, I wasn't saying that what they'd said was wrong, but it could be seriously enhanced with a bit of data. So my suggestion was, and now add in those scores and things like that. And what I also tried to do on that, I mean, it sounds like, and therefore I'm great at this, but this is just, I guess if people want to know how we do it, then I guess I have to tell them how I didn't actually edit their response. I put a column next to it with my thoughts, and then they edited in taking the feedback.
I think that's. I always try and do that as well. Like when someone says, "Can you review and approve?" I normally don't edit unless I see a typo.
You're changing a typo. I obviously change typos as well, or any kind of inconsistent.
But I think it's much better to say, maybe we should include this, or have we thought about this? I think that's much better than saying,
because it shows your thinking.
I've rewritten it. Yeah,
exactly.
and also that it gives them the opportunity to say, I thought about that, but actually
they did push back on a few things, and I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll let it go. I don't think it's a major one. And I think because the good thing is if you let them in on the way you're thinking about it, the next time the chances are they won't need to. But if you just go in and straight up edit it and just say it's done, I mean, where's the learning? I think that actually worked quite well. But I'm conscious that on the next RFP, I don't want to be quite as I wasn't as involved as I could have been, but someone did say to me, "I think you're too much over this."
Right.
But I was like, it's the biggest RFP we've ever had. I kind of think the first time you should go and
it's a bit like the first time selling ScreenCloud, really, isn't it?
Yeah. It needs to be founder-led at the very beginning, just for your own personal, like I got to experience it, so that when I can see it in the future, maybe when things don't go well, I can give some advice. But if I've not actually walked a mile in those shoes, then it's going to be really hard. And
there were some sort of big decisions that we had to take as well that, again, someone might not have felt confident.
Yeah.
They've had a stab at it. But so I suppose in conclusion then, like it has worked well for us I think giving people ownership, encouraging people to take initiative, hopefully, I mean, without actually speaking to them, maybe we should ask people, but it'd be interesting to see whether people feel that they generally can take initiative. I think they can feel that they can. Or whether some people go, but I'm still slightly scared that if I get it wrong, Mark will bite my head off, or David will have a strop or whatever.
It's possible. I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, we're not perfect. I would be surprised if everyone said it was really, really good. I'm pretty sure they'd all be lying.
Yeah.
I think there's areas which we can sort of loosen the reins on. But then I'd also say, in response to anyone saying that, it's like, well, we've got to give us a bit of tolerance too. Like, you are talking to people who literally had to do everything themselves, right, from day one, right? And it's not just that it's because people think it's about wanting the control. It's not. I don't really want the control. It's just that I've got muscle memory of having to do this all myself, as do you and Luke and everything like that. And actually switching to become purely advisory, that's like a completely different way of doing what you did for 2 years.
Yeah.
So not being absolutely brilliant at letting it go the first time isn't because of this desire. No, it's me, I'm the best. It's just us learning to do it differently too. And if
also,
people weren't tolerant of that, I'd be a bit like, well, fuck off you.
Yeah. Well, also as leaders as well, you're there to make people as good as they can be, and sometimes that involves giving feedback.
Yeah, totally. But I think it has to go both ways. Tolerance for errors has to go up as well as down. I'm sure it is, but I don't think people. This is my common view. Is like you've got this sort of this job title, right? This kind of founder like job title, especially when you've got 60 people and you've done it for a while. Like you're still learning as well.
Yeah.
And I sometimes I think there isn't as much tolerance for mistakes to be done there as there is the other way around. I mean, I'm not trying to have a go at, but I just, if people are listening on that front, I'd be like,
We're making it up as we go along.
Kind of. Yeah, well, actually,
there's lots of things that we haven't done before. So
I've never run a company of 60 odd people. Have you?
No.
Right. So every day's a school day.
Yeah.
And it will take time. But I think so long as, the things that we're saying, we're actually trying to back it up with action, even if it's imperfect and it takes a while to roll out, that I think is good. That, and hence why even just debating like ownership, initiative, accountability.
We'll probably have another chat about this afterwards, won't we? And go, what we meant. Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's been another good half-hour session or just over. It's kind of cathartic as well as cathartic for us. Hopefully useful for some people to listen to as well. But until next time. Cool.